King's Guard shows exceptional horsemanship when tourists did this at Horse Guard's parade. The sun had just started climbing higher in the sky, casting golden light on the wide open space of Horse Guard's parade. The parade, with its long tradition and grand ceremonies, has always been a place where history feels alive. Tourists, locals, and photographers gathered around the edges of the parade ground, some sitting on benches, some standing with their cameras ready. Everyone wanted a chance to witness the famous horse guards, the elite soldiers who have stood watch for centuries, performing their duties with extraordinary precision and discipline. Among the crowd, excitement buzzed in the air. Tourists from every corner of the world had traveled to London to experience this spectacle. Many were holding guidebooks, pointing out interesting details to their friends or family. Some were wearing jackets with bright colors, some hats, and many carried backpacks filled with cameras, water bottles, and souvenirs. Children ran around excitedly, their laughter blending with the sound of footsteps and chatter. Street performers added another layer of life to the scene, with musicians playing soft melodies that floated over the parade. But amidst all this activity, one thing stood out clearly: the visitors' fascination with the horse guards and the magnificent horses they rode. The horse guards themselves were already present, standing tall and proud on their horses. Each soldier wore the traditional red tunic, perfectly pressed, and the black helmet that gleamed under the sunlight. The horses, large and strong, shifted slightly as their riders guided them to precise positions. The sight was impressive. The guards' movements were calm and controlled, yet there was an air of strength and readiness in every gesture. These were not ordinary horses. They were carefully trained to remain composed in busy and noisy environments. Their riders, too, were highly skilled, trained to handle any situation with calmness and authority. Tourists watched in awe as the guards moved in patterns that seemed almost choreographed. Some whispered to each other about how perfect the horses looked, while others took photos, trying to capture every detail. The guards' horses trotted gracefully, their hooves making rhythmic sounds on the stone pavement. The guards held their posture with military precision, their eyes scanning the surroundings constantly, aware of both the ceremony and the crowd. It was a performance that had been perfected over generations, yet it was also a living duty, not just a show. As the crowd grew thicker, a group of tourists began to move closer to the parade ground than they should have. They were curious, eager to get a better view and better photographs. Some of them held their phones high, trying to capture the perfect angle, while others leaned forward to watch the guards and horses up close. In their excitement, they did not notice the invisible boundary that separated the ceremonial area from the public space. The tension in the air was subtle at first, almost unnoticed by many, but it was there for those who understood how horses behaved. Horses are large, strong animals, sensitive to sudden movements and loud noises. Even the most disciplined horse could become startled if a person got too close or behaved unpredictably. One guard, noticing the movement of the tourists, straightened slightly in the saddle. His horse responded instantly, a slight shift in posture that indicated readiness. The guard's eyes, calm but watchful, followed the tourist's every move. He did not speak, there was no need to. His presence alone, combined with the steady composure of the horse, sent a subtle message to the crowd. The parade is both a celebration and a space where rules must be respected. Around him, the other guards maintained their positions, their horses moving with quiet strength. The ceremony continued, unbroken, but the watchful eyes of the guards ensured that the balance between tradition and safety remained intact. The atmosphere was a mix of excitement and respect. Tourists whispered among themselves, pointing at the guards and horses, unaware of the potential danger of moving too close. They admired the discipline, the coordination, and the sheer elegance of the performance. Some had traveled for hours just to witness this historic spectacle, and their anticipation was visible on their faces. Meanwhile, locals walked calmly along the edges of the parade, used to the presence of the horse guards, but still appreciating the beauty and precision of the ceremony. There was a quiet understanding among those who had seen it before. The parade was a living reminder of history, but it required attention and respect from everyone present. The sunlight glinted off the polished helmets and the horses' shiny coats. The sound of hooves echoed across the parade ground, creating a rhythm that blended seamlessly with the murmurs of the crowd. Every detail mattered. The placement of each foot, the way the reins were held, the posture of the guards. To an untrained eye, it might look like a simple ceremony, but for those paying close attention, it was clear that every movement was the result of rigorous training and dedication. The guards had to remain perfectly focused, their eyes constantly scanning for anything that could disrupt the harmony of the performance. Amid this scene, one could notice the pride in the guards' demeanor. They were aware of the tourists' fascination, yet they remained calm, almost statuesque. Their responsibility was immense. Not only were they performing a ceremonial duty, but they were also ensuring the safety of everyone around. One small misstep, a distracted horse, or an unpredictable movement from a tourist could have serious consequences. But the guards had trained for years to handle such situations. Their horsemanship was not just about skill. It was about patience, awareness, and the ability to maintain composure under pressure. As the minutes passed, the tourists slowly began to realize the seriousness of the parade. Some stepped back, giving more space to the guards and horses, while others remained close, fascinated, and eager for photos. The energy in the air was a mix of admiration and curiosity. Children pointed excitedly at the horses, while adults tried to capture the perfect photograph. Street performers continued their soft melodies, adding a soundtrack to the unfolding scene. Yet the focus remained on the horse guards, whose presence dominated the parade ground. Their calm, disciplined movements contrasted with the lively, sometimes chaotic energy of the crowd, creating a beautiful balance between ceremony and audience engagement. Even at a distance, the guards' skills were visible. The way they guided their horses with small, almost imperceptible movements, the way they communicated silently with their mounts, and the way they maintained perfect posture all spoke to years of dedication. Tourists marveled at the sight, some whispering to each other about how trained the horses seemed, how precise the movements were. Others speculated about the history of the parade, imagining the centuries of tradition behind each guard and horse. It was a moment where history, skill, and human fascination came together in a single, captivating scene. As the morning wore on, the crowd continued to grow, each person eager to witness and experience the ceremony. The horse guards moved with quiet confidence, their horses perfectly attuned to their commands. Even as the tourists' curiosity brought them closer to the parade ground, the guards remained vigilant, ensuring that every step was safe and controlled. There was a rhythm to it all, a dance of discipline, tradition, and public interaction that was both impressive and reassuring. The story of that morning at Horse Guards Parade was more than just a ceremony. It was a reminder of the dedication required to maintain centuries-old traditions, the skill needed to work with powerful animals, and the delicate balance between public fascination and safety. Every guard and horse played a role in this living history, and every tourist, knowingly or unknowingly, became part of the unfolding scene. The bright morning, the golden sunlight, the lively crowd, and the disciplined guards combined to create a moment that would stay in the memories of those who witnessed it. A moment where history and the present met in perfect harmony. The morning at Horse Guards Parade continued. Bright and lively, but a subtle shift began to ripple through the crowd. While most visitors kept their distance and watched respectfully, a small group of tourists, drawn by curiosity and excitement, began to inch closer to the ceremonial area. They wanted a better view, the perfect photo, or simply to feel the thrill of being near the iconic guards and horses. At first, their movements seemed harmless, just eager observers wanting to experience history up close. But in a place where discipline and safety were as important as tradition, even small missteps could create tension. The tourists, laughing and chatting, did not notice the invisible line that separated the ceremonial ground from the public space. Some raised their cameras high, stepping forward for a better angle. Others leaned over to see the guards' faces or the horses' impressive stature. Their excitement was palpable, but it was coupled with a lack of awareness. The guards, trained to respond to even the smallest sign of disruption, noticed immediately. One guard, mounted on a large, steady horse, subtly shifted in his saddle, his posture straightening just enough to signal alertness. The horse, sensing the tension in its rider, responded with a slight, controlled movement. Though calm, both the guard and the horse were ready for anything. Horses, by nature, are sensitive animals. They can sense moods, detect sudden movements, and react to unfamiliar sounds. Even the most experienced and trained horses could feel nervous when people approached too closely or acted unpredictably. The parade was designed to allow a safe distance between the spectators and the guards, a boundary that ensured both the horses and the public remained safe. But when these tourists stepped closer, they unknowingly tested that balance. Their phones flashed as they captured photos, some raising their voices in excitement. In those moments, the serene atmosphere of the parade began to crack, replaced by a quiet tension that only a few people noticed. One guard, noticing the movement of the tourists, remained calm but alert. His eyes followed every step they took, his hands steady on the reins. There was no sudden motion, no harsh command, only the careful, deliberate awareness that comes from years of training. His horse, a massive animal with a glossy coat, mirrored his composure, standing tall and unmoved by the crowd around it. The guard's training allowed him to communicate silently with his mount, using subtle cues to control every movement. A slight shift of weight, a gentle press of the leg, a soft tug on the reins, all were enough to guide the horse perfectly. As the tourists moved closer, a few of them laughed and pointed at the guards, making playful gestures without realizing the potential risk. One child, holding a parent's hand, ran forward slightly, curious about the horse's size and strength. The horse's ears twitched, noticing the movement, but the guard's calm posture reassured it. With a gentle nudge of his leg and a soft touch on the reins, the guard guided the horse backward just enough to create a safe buffer. To the untrained eye, it looked simple, almost effortless, but it required skill, timing, and a deep understanding of the animal. The crowd, watching closely, began to sense the situation, some whispering in admiration at the guard's ability to maintain calm under pressure. The tension was subtle but growing. The tourists were excited, unaware that their actions could potentially spook the horses or disrupt the ceremony. A sudden movement, a loud laugh, or a dropped phone could startle a horse, creating a dangerous situation. The guards, aware of every possibility, maintained their focus. Their training allowed them to anticipate reactions, both human and animal. They were not just ceremonial figures. They were skilled professionals, capable of controlling massive, powerful animals even in unpredictable situations. The Horse Guards parade was more than a performance. It was a demonstration of discipline, patience, and precision. Meanwhile, the crowd of spectators held its collective breath, watching as the situation unfolded. Many tourists, realizing the proximity of the small group, began to step back slightly, giving more space to the ceremonial area. Others took photos from a safer distance, capturing the beauty of the parade without risking disruption. Children, sensing the seriousness in their parents' voices, slowed their playful movements. The atmosphere, though still lively, had shifted from casual curiosity to respectful attention. Everyone seemed to understand that the guards' role was both impressive and essential, maintaining not only tradition but also the safety of the event. The small group of tourists eventually noticed the subtle signals from the guards. One woman, holding a camera, stepped back instinctively when a guard's horse shifted slightly, sensing tension in its surroundings. A man, reaching forward for a closer look, froze as he noticed the calm but authoritative gaze of the mounted guard. It was a quiet lesson in respect and awareness, one that required no words but communicated volumes. The guards continued their routine, their movements precise, their horses steady. The ceremony continued seamlessly, even as potential disruption hovered nearby, a testament to the skill and discipline of both horse and rider. What made this moment remarkable was not just the potential danger, but the way it was handled. The guard did not shout or react aggressively. There was no sudden movement or forceful command. Instead, the situation was diffused with quiet authority. The horse responded calmly, guided by subtle cues that only a trained rider could give. The tourists, slowly realizing their mistake, stepped back, some apologizing with smiles or laughter. The crowd collectively exhaled, the tension lifting, replaced by admiration for the guard's professionalism. It was a powerful reminder that true skill often goes unnoticed until it is tested. As the morning progressed, the parade continued with rhythm and grace. The horse guards moved in formation, their horses following commands with precision. The incident with the tourists had passed without harm, but it left an impression on those who witnessed it. People began to notice details they might have otherwise overlooked. The way the reins were held, the subtle shifts of weight that guided the horses, the calm focus of the guards' eyes. Every movement, every gesture, told a story of dedication and discipline, honed over years of training and practice. Even as the crowd resumed their usual positions, the memory of the incident lingered. Some tourists whispered to each other, commenting on how calm and professional the guards had remained. Others shared photos and videos, capturing the scene not just for its ceremonial beauty, but also for the quiet display of skill under pressure. The incident became a shared experience among the spectators, a moment of real-life drama that highlighted the unique responsibilities of the horse guards. Unlike staged performances or rehearsed events, this moment was unpredictable, real, and a testament to the guards' ability to handle the unexpected with grace. Children continued to point at the horses, adults continued to snap photographs, and the music of the street performers floated gently over the parade ground. Yet beneath the lively atmosphere, a sense of respect had settled. People understood that they were witnessing something rare, a combination of tradition, skill, and real-life expertise. The guards' horsemanship was not simply about controlling animals. It was about reading situations, anticipating challenges, and acting with confidence and calm. The tourists, whether aware or not, became part of this lesson in patience, observation, and respect. By mid-morning, the crowd had grown even larger, but the parade maintained its rhythm. The guards, unshaken by the earlier incident, continued their ceremonial duties flawlessly. Their horses, steady and obedient, mirrored their calm and focus. Visitors were captivated not just by the spectacle, but by the underlying mastery that made such a performance possible. Every step, every turn, every moment of stillness reflected the dedication of the guards and the trust between rider and horse. What could have been a dangerous situation had instead become a quiet demonstration of expertise, one that would leave a lasting impression on everyone present. In the end, the morning at Horse Guards Parade was a lesson in balance. It was about the delicate harmony between tradition and modern curiosity, between human excitement and the disciplined strength of horses. The small group of tourists, initially unaware of the rules, had inadvertently tested the skill of the guards, and in doing so, revealed the true depth of their training. The guards, calm and authoritative, handled the situation with quiet precision, ensuring that the ceremony continued safely and beautifully. As the crowd began to settle, the narrative of the morning remained clear. Horse Guards Parade was not just a spectacle to watch. It was a living example of discipline, skill, and history. The guards and their horses were more than performers. They were custodians of tradition, protectors of safety, and masters of horsemanship. And for the tourists, the experience became more than a photo opportunity. It became a moment of awe and respect, a story to remember about the calm authority and exceptional skill displayed by the horse guards when faced with the unexpected, the tension that had quietly built up. At Horse Guards Parade reached its peak as the small group of tourists continued to edge closer. Their curiosity, combined with excitement, created a situation that required more than just calm observation. It demanded skill, awareness, and quick thinking. The guard on the large, powerful horse noticed every step. His eyes, sharp and steady, scanned the group. Every twitch, every sudden gesture was registered immediately. His horse, trained over years to respond to subtle commands, shifted slightly in place, ready to move with precision. This was the moment where true horsemanship would be tested. The tourists, unaware of the silent signals between rider and horse, continued forward. One man leaned over to get a better photograph of the ceremonial uniform, while a young woman stepped slightly to the side, trying to see the horse's polished hooves. Even the horse, calm as it was, picked up the unusual energy nearby. Its ears flicked back briefly, its muscles tensed just enough to communicate alertness, but the guard remained composed. He did not shout or make sudden movements. His body language was controlled, confident, and deliberate. Every subtle motion of the reins, every slight adjustment of his posture, conveyed authority without aggression. Suddenly, a child, excited by the massive horse, tried to move forward to get a closer look. The guard's eyes immediately locked on the child. In a single, fluid motion, he adjusted the horse's stance. A gentle nudge of his leg, a slight shift of weight, and a subtle pull of the reins guided the horse backward just enough to create a safe buffer. The movement was almost imperceptible to the untrained eye, but it was perfectly executed. The horse responded instantly, moving with precision and calmness that seemed almost magical to the spectators. A collective gasp rose from the crowd, though quietly, as everyone recognized the guard's skill in handling what could have become a dangerous situation. The beauty of this moment lay in its subtlety. The guard did not panic and the horse did not spook. Instead, they worked together seamlessly, communicating through years of training and mutual trust. The tourists began to realize, slowly and somewhat embarrassed, that their actions had caused a response. They stepped back, murmuring apologies, though the guard offered no words. His calm demeanor was enough. Nearby spectators whispered among themselves, commenting on the incredible precision and discipline required to control such powerful animals in real time. The guard's horsemanship was not flashy or dramatic. It was quiet, controlled, and entirely effective. As the child retreated to the parent's side, the guard continued to move the horse in subtle circles, maintaining a buffer between the ceremonial area and the public. His eyes never left the crowd, observing for any sudden movements or potential risks. Every minor shift of the reins communicated a clear instruction to the horse, and every adjustment of posture reinforced control. The spectators, now more attentive, began to understand that what they were witnessing was more than a routine ceremony. It was a live demonstration of skill under pressure, a delicate balance between authority, tradition, and real-time problem-solving. The tourists' group, now aware of the tension they had caused, began to disperse slightly. Some stepped back entirely, taking their photos from a safe distance. Others watched silently, clearly impressed by the guard's professionalism. The crowd's focus shifted from casual curiosity to admiration, and a quiet respect settled over the parade. People whispered to each other about how skilled the guards were, about the subtle ways they communicated with their horses, and about the years of training and dedication that allowed them to handle unexpected situations with such ease. For the guard and the horse, the situation was a test of discipline and experience. Horses can sense stress and react unpredictably, but this horse remained calm, guided by the firm, consistent presence of its rider. The subtle commands, a shift of weight here, a pressure of the leg there, kept the horse steady and aware. The guard did not raise his voice, did not show frustration, and did not make any abrupt moves. It was a quiet mastery that spoke louder than any words. The crowd began to understand that this was more than a ceremonial display. It was a real-life demonstration of patience, control, and harmony between human and animal. As moments passed, a louder noise rang out from the crowd. A tourist accidentally dropped a camera case, causing a small clatter on the stone pavement. The horse's ears flicked backward, sensing the sudden sound. The guard, without breaking his composure, guided the horse in a small, controlled circle, maintaining calm while creating distance between the source of the noise and the ceremonial area. The spectators watched in awe as the horse followed the subtle commands perfectly. The guard's body language communicated authority and calm simultaneously, demonstrating a rare skill that only comes from years of rigorous training and deep understanding of the animal. It was in these small moments that the essence of horsemanship shone brightest. The guard did not need to shout or act dramatically. Instead, he used precision, awareness, and confidence. The horse responded instinctively, a partnership built on trust and experience. Spectators began to murmur in appreciation, pointing out how impressive it was to see such calm control under real pressure. Even the tourists who had unknowingly caused the tension were captivated, some taking cautious photos, others simply watching, realizing they were witnessing something extraordinary. The ceremonial routine continued, but the earlier incident had added a layer of intensity to the scene. The guard guided the horse back into formation, maintaining perfect alignment with the other riders. Each movement was deliberate, precise, and unbroken, a testament to the control and coordination required to manage both ceremony and safety. The crowd remained quiet, sensing the professionalism and discipline that allowed such a massive animal to remain calm amidst potential chaos. The parade was no longer just a spectacle. It had become a lesson in responsibility, control, and respect for both tradition and the living creatures involved. Meanwhile, the other guards observed the situation, ready to assist if necessary. Their horses mirrored the calm authority of their riders, and the formation remained intact. It was clear that the small group of tourists, though initially unaware of the rules, had unintentionally created a situation that tested the guards' skill. Yet even under pressure, the entire team maintained composure, guiding their horses with precision while ensuring that the ceremonial integrity of the parade remained unbroken. The quiet coordination and awareness among the guards highlighted the depth of their training and the respect they commanded, not just from the public, but also from their horses. The tourists began to step back further, finally recognizing the boundaries they had crossed. The child was guided gently back to the parent's side, and the adults moved a few steps away from the ceremonial ground. The guard's horse remained calm, guided by a series of imperceptible commands that kept it steady. The spectators, many of whom had been watching intently, began to applaud quietly, acknowledging the guard's exceptional skill. It was a moment of recognition for both human and animal, an acknowledgement of the discipline, patience, and mastery required to perform such a task seamlessly in front of an audience. As the parade continued, the mood shifted from tension to admiration. Tourists now observed with a new understanding, paying closer attention to the interactions between horse and rider. Every small movement, every shift of the reins, every posture adjustment became a lesson in calm authority and mastery. Children pointed at the horses with wide eyes, adults whispered about the skill involved, and the overall atmosphere was one of awe and respect. The earlier disruption had transformed into a teaching moment, illustrating the delicate balance between curiosity, discipline, and the art of horsemanship. Even after the tourists settled back into safer positions, the guard continued to demonstrate remarkable control. The horse moved in smooth, calculated steps, responding instantly to the subtle cues of its rider. The parade maintained its rhythm, every movement deliberate and precise. Spectators began to notice the finer details. The way the reins were held, the gentle pressure of the legs, the calm authority in the guard's posture. It became clear that what they were witnessing was not just a ceremony, but a performance of skill, patience, and mutual trust between human and animal. By late morning, the small incident had passed, but its impact lingered. Tourists shared the story with each other, discussing how calmly and effectively the guard had managed the situation. The crowd now viewed the parade not just as a visual spectacle, but as a living demonstration of dedication, training, and the harmony between horse and rider. The guard and horse had transformed a potentially dangerous moment into an unforgettable display of skill, professionalism, and quiet authority. The lesson was clear. Horsemanship is not only about riding, but also about understanding, anticipation, and composure under pressure. The guard's actions reminded everyone present that discipline, patience, and respect are just as important as strength or skill. The incident had begun with curiosity and excitement, but it ended with admiration, a newfound respect for the traditions and training behind the horse guard's parade. As the morning continued and the sun climbed higher in the sky, the parade moved forward in perfect rhythm. Horses trotted in unison, guards held their positions flawlessly, and the crowd watched in silent appreciation. The small group of tourists, now fully aware of the care and discipline required, observed with humility and fascination. The event was no longer just a routine ceremony. It had become a story of calm authority, expert horsemanship, and the quiet, powerful bond between rider and horse. The tension that had built up earlier at Horse Guard's parade had now begun to fade, but its effects were still visible among the crowd. Tourists who had stepped too close were now more cautious, moving back to safer positions, while others who had watched from a distance whispered about the incredible skill of the guard and his horse. The air, which had been filled with curiosity and excitement, now carried a sense of admiration. People were no longer focused solely on getting the perfect photograph or the closest view. Instead, they were quietly reflecting on what they had just witnessed, a display of discipline, calm, and expertise that went far beyond the usual pageantry. The small group of tourists who had caused the initial disruption stood together, a mix of embarrassment and awe on their faces. One woman gently clutched her camera, realizing that her attempt to get a closer shot had almost created a risky situation. A man beside her shook his head, both amused and impressed at how calmly the guard had handled the situation. The child who had run forward earlier now held tightly to a parent's hand, sensing the seriousness of the moment without fully understanding it. These reactions highlighted an important lesson. Sometimes, the most remarkable moments are not the ones you plan to capture, but the ones you experience unexpectedly. The crowd as a whole began to settle into a different kind of engagement. People who had been talking loudly or moving around now watched with rapt attention. Every movement of the guards and their horses became more significant. Children leaned forward, pointing out the subtle changes in posture and rein pressure. Adults whispered among themselves, speculating about how the guards had learned to handle their horses with such control and patience. It was a collective shift from casual entertainment to quiet admiration, a recognition that the horse guards were performing a real-life skill that required years of dedication and training. Meanwhile, the guards themselves maintained their professionalism. The one who had handled the tourists' approach continued to guide his horse with effortless grace, every movement precise and deliberate. Even the other guards who had watched the situation unfold from a distance kept their focus unwavering. Their horses remained calm, responding instantly to the slightest cues. The parade moved forward in perfect synchronization, a rhythm that spoke volumes about the dedication and discipline of everyone involved. To an observer, it seemed almost effortless, but anyone familiar with horsemanship would recognize the intense skill required to maintain such control under public scrutiny. As the crowd watched, a few people began asking questions quietly among themselves. How did the guard train the horse to remain calm in such situations? How long does it take to achieve that level of control and discipline? Some tourists speculated about the years of preparation, imagining the countless hours spent in training exercises that honed both the rider's and the horse's abilities. Others admired the silent communication between man and animal, noticing how a subtle shift of weight or a tiny adjustment of the reins could guide a horse with complete precision. The parade had transformed from a simple spectacle into an educational experience, where the audience could witness the results of dedication, patience, and respect. The small group of tourists who had caused the initial tension began to interact differently with the event. Instead of trying to push closer, they stepped back and observed carefully. They whispered to each other about the guards' calm and measured actions, clearly impressed by the ability to control such a large animal with such subtle movements. One woman murmured that it was like watching a dance, an elegant, precise, and entirely controlled performance that balanced authority with grace. Her words were echoed by others nearby, as admiration spread quietly through the crowd. The lesson had been learned. Curiosity was welcome, but respect and awareness were equally important. The horses themselves seemed to sense the change in energy. The guard's horse, which had remained vigilant and responsive throughout the incident, now relaxed slightly while still maintaining perfect posture. The subtle rhythm of its movements, the gentle sway, and the controlled steps all demonstrated the bond between rider and animal. Horses are intelligent and sensitive creatures, and they respond not just to commands but to the mood and awareness of their riders. The guard had guided his mount through the situation without force, relying on trust, subtle cues, and experience. The crowd could feel this connection, even without knowing the technical details, and it added an emotional depth to the ceremony. Some tourists began to take notes, both mentally and with cameras, not just to document the visual spectacle, but to capture the lessons behind it. They noticed the patience required to maintain control, the awareness needed to anticipate potential disruptions, and the quiet authority that allowed the guards to handle unexpected challenges without escalating the situation. Parents pointed out details to their children, teaching them about respect, observation, and the careful coordination between human and animal. The parade had become more than entertainment. It had become a live demonstration of responsibility, focus, and harmony. Even the casual spectators, those who had come primarily for photographs, were now quietly engaged. They watched the guards and horses move in formation, noting the precision of each step and the calm authority of the riders. Every minor shift of posture, every gentle pull of the reins, every controlled turn of the horse conveyed a story of training and discipline. People began to discuss how these skills, though often unseen or unappreciated, were essential for maintaining the safety and integrity of the ceremony. The incident with the tourists had highlighted this truth, turning a potentially risky moment into an unforgettable lesson in horsemanship and professionalism. The guards, meanwhile, maintained an almost perfect balance between ceremony and vigilance. They continued their formation, each movement deliberate and synchronized. The horses, guided by years of training and an intuitive understanding of their riders, moved with grace and authority. The spectators could see the trust between horse and rider, a relationship built over countless hours of practice and shared experience. It was a reminder that true mastery requires patience, respect, and constant attention to detail. The parade, often seen as a symbol of tradition and pageantry, was also a living testament to the skills, discipline, and dedication of the people who performed it. As the morning progressed, the small group of tourists began to share their experience with others around them. They recounted how close they had come to disturbing the ceremony and how impressed they were by the guards' calm and precise response. Their words spread through the crowd, enhancing the sense of admiration and respect. People began to discuss not just the visual beauty of the parade, but the deeper lessons it offered about patience, awareness, and professionalism. It became clear that the incident, while brief, had transformed the experience for everyone present, turning a routine ceremonial event into a powerful, memorable demonstration of skill and discipline. The atmosphere shifted further as people began to reflect on the role of the guards beyond their ceremonial duties. They realized that these were not just performers in uniforms. They were trained professionals responsible for the safety of the public and the well-being of their horses. Each guard had to anticipate challenges, respond calmly under pressure, and maintain composure even when unexpected situations arose. The parade was both a visual celebration of tradition and a practical demonstration of responsibility, teamwork, and expertise. This realization deepened the crowd's appreciation and left many quietly impressed. Children, in particular, seemed captivated by the story unfolding before them. They had witnessed firsthand how calmness and awareness could prevent a potentially risky situation from becoming dangerous. Parents took the opportunity to explain to their children the importance of respect for rules, boundaries, and the careful coordination between humans and animals. The experience became both entertaining and educational, a rare combination that made the parade more meaningful for young observers. Even casual tourists who had arrived simply to take pictures found themselves absorbed in the lessons quietly unfolding in front of them. By mid-morning, the parade had returned to a steady rhythm. The guards and horses moved flawlessly, their actions precise, coordinated, and controlled. The small group of tourists, now fully aware of the care required, observed respectfully from a safe distance. Others in the crowd mirrored this behavior, giving the guards space and observing closely. The incident had passed, but its lessons remained. It had reminded everyone that tradition is not just about appearance or ceremony. It is also about preparation, vigilance, and respect for both people and animals involved. As the event continued, spectators began to share their reflections more openly. Conversations buzzed about how calm the guards had remained, how smoothly the horses responded, and how quickly the potential disruption had been handled. People marveled at the silent communication between rider and horse, the trust built over years of training, and the professionalism displayed in handling an unexpected situation. The parade had become more than a performance. It was a living lesson in responsibility, observation, and mastery. By the time the ceremony drew toward its later stages, the small group of tourists had fully absorbed the lesson. They approached the event with caution, observing carefully and appreciating the skill and discipline on display. The crowd, now fully engaged, seemed more connected to the story unfolding before them. The parade was no longer just a tradition to be watched. It was a shared experience, a moment of real learning and quiet admiration. The impact of the earlier tension had transformed the atmosphere, turning curiosity into respect and casual observation into attentive engagement. As the morning sun climbed higher, the parade concluded with a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction. The guards had maintained perfect composure, the horses had performed flawlessly, and the crowd had learned an unforgettable lesson about discipline, patience, and respect. The small disruption had served as a turning point, highlighting the expertise required to maintain tradition and safety simultaneously. The spectators, young and old alike, left with a deeper understanding of the parade, the guards, and the remarkable horsemanship that made such a performance possible. As the morning at Horse Guards parade drew to a close, the atmosphere shifted from the quiet admiration and curiosity of earlier hours to a calm, reflective energy. The crowd began to disperse slowly, but the experience of the morning lingered in everyone's mind. People walked with a sense of wonder, discussing what they had witnessed, sharing stories and photos, and quietly appreciating the skill and dedication of the guards and their horses. What had started as a routine ceremonial event had transformed into a memorable lesson in patience, discipline, and horsemanship, leaving a lasting impression on all who were present. The small group of tourists who had inadvertently stepped too close earlier now moved carefully among the crowd. Their demeanor changed from excited curiosity to respectful attentiveness. They spoke quietly among themselves, recounting how the guard had handled the situation with such calm and precision. Each movement of the horse, each subtle command from the rider had been executed flawlessly. They realized that this was no ordinary performance. It was a living demonstration of expertise and composure, and they had been fortunate to witness it firsthand. The embarrassment they had initially felt was replaced by admiration, and they shared smiles and nods with other spectators who had observed the same events. Parents held their children close, pointing out details they might have missed before. They spoke about respect, awareness, and the responsibility required to handle large animals safely. The children listened intently, eyes wide, still absorbing the lessons from the morning. The experience had turned into more than a visual spectacle. It had become an educational moment. Parents explained how the guards' calmness had prevented any harm, how subtle communication between horse and rider had guided the animals, and how discipline and training could make even the most unpredictable situations manageable. Children seemed fascinated not just by the size and strength of the horses, but by the quiet authority and professionalism of the guards. The crowd's respect for the guards was evident in every conversation. Visitors from around the world discussed the precision of the movements, the trust between horse and rider, and the seamless way the guards maintained both ceremony and safety. Some tourists shared their photos and videos, capturing not only the pageantry of the parade, but also the subtle moments of skill and control that had impressed them. They marveled at how the guard had remained calm under pressure, guiding his horse without force or sudden gestures, ensuring that the ceremonial routine continued without disruption. These stories spread quietly through the crowd, enhancing the overall sense of admiration and respect. The guards themselves continued their duties with unwavering professionalism. Even as the parade was winding down, each rider maintained perfect posture, their horses moving with grace and control. The public's attention, though less tense now, remained engaged. Spectators continued to watch in awe, appreciating the precision and discipline required to perform such a ceremony flawlessly. The guards' horsemanship was not merely about riding. It was about anticipation, awareness, and the ability to remain calm under any circumstances. Every subtle movement spoke of years of training, practice, and dedication, and the spectators were beginning to understand the depth of the skill involved. The horses, for their part, displayed calm and patience throughout. They seemed to sense the shift in the crowd's energy, moving gracefully while remaining attentive to their riders. The bond between horse and rider was visible in every gesture, every step, every subtle adjustment of the reins. It was a partnership built on trust and understanding, developed over countless hours of training. The spectators, now fully aware of the complexity of the task, watched with quiet reverence. They understood that the beauty of the parade was not only in the visual spectacle, but also in the harmony between humans and animals, and the discipline required to maintain it. As the final movements of the parade concluded, the audience began to reflect on what they had witnessed. The small incident earlier in the morning had served as a reminder of the unpredictability of real life and the importance of composure and expertise. The guards had turned a potentially risky situation into a demonstration of mastery, showing how discipline, patience, and awareness can prevent accidents and maintain harmony. This realization left the crowd with a sense of admiration that went beyond mere entertainment. They had seen a real-life display of professionalism and skill, and it had made a lasting impact. The tourists who had caused the minor disruption were now fully engaged in observing the parade from a safe distance. They whispered among themselves, discussing the skill of the guard and the responsiveness of the horse. One man commented on the subtle gestures that guided the animal, noting that he had never realized how much communication between horse and rider could happen without words. Another woman remarked on the calm authority of the guards, explaining that it was not just their training, but also their experience and awareness that made them so effective. Their conversation reflected a deep appreciation for the care, patience, and dedication required to perform such a ceremonial duty safely and beautifully. Even casual spectators, who had initially arrived without any particular knowledge of horsemanship, began to see the event in a new light. They discussed the quiet power of the guards' actions, the discipline required to maintain both ceremony and safety, and the trust that existed between horse and rider. Children, inspired by what they had seen, asked questions about how the horses were trained and how the guards learned to communicate with them so precisely. Parents answered patiently, explaining the importance of practice, observation, and respect for both tradition and animals. The parade had transformed from a simple spectacle into an immersive educational experience for everyone present. As the crowd slowly started to disperse, the lasting impression of the morning became clear. People carried with them a renewed sense of respect for tradition, skill, and professionalism. They talked about the calm authority of the guards, the patience and discipline of the horses, and the quiet way in which a potentially dangerous situation had been handled without incident. These discussions were filled with admiration and a sense of awe, demonstrating that the impact of the event extended far beyond the performance itself. It had left a mark on the hearts and minds of those who witnessed it, a lesson in composure, respect, and the harmony between humans and animals. The guards, too, continued their duties even as the crowd thinned. They maintained perfect posture, guiding their horses with precision until the very end of the parade. There was no rush, no sign of fatigue, only steady focus and professionalism. The horses followed every command with grace and obedience, a reflection of the trust and partnership they had developed with their riders over time. The final moments of the ceremony encapsulated the essence of the entire morning: discipline, patience, and harmony. Spectators left with a newfound understanding that the parade was not just about pageantry, but also about the mastery of skill, the bond between rider and horse, and the ability to maintain calm under pressure. Even as visitors exited the parade ground, conversations continued. People shared their stories of what they had seen, praising the guards and their horses for handling the earlier incident so calmly. Some discussed the importance of respect and awareness, noting how the experience had reminded them to observe rules and boundaries in public spaces. Parents talked to children about responsibility, teaching them to appreciate the care required to maintain safety while enjoying historic events. The parade had left an educational and emotional impression, showing that true skill often lies in the ability to remain calm and precise, even in unexpected situations. For the tourists who had caused the initial disruption, the experience was particularly meaningful. They had seen firsthand the professionalism, patience, and expertise required to guide a large, powerful horse through a potentially risky scenario. Their excitement and curiosity had been transformed into respect and admiration, a quiet acknowledgement of the skill they had witnessed. They shared smiles, nods, and whispers of amazement, realizing that what they had seen was far more than a simple ceremonial display. It was a lesson in responsibility, mastery, and the quiet power of discipline. As the morning gave way to the early afternoon, the parade area gradually emptied, leaving behind a sense of calm and reflection. The experience of the morning remained in the minds of the crowd, a vivid memory of skill, patience, and composure. Spectators left with photographs, stories, and a renewed appreciation for the dedication of the horse guards and their horses. They had witnessed not just a display of tradition, but also a live demonstration of how calm authority, discipline, and partnership can turn a potentially dangerous moment into a lesson in mastery and respect. Even for those who had come without prior knowledge of the parade or horsemanship, the morning had left an impression. People spoke of the quiet, controlled movements of the guards, the responsiveness of the horses, and the calm resolution of the minor disruption. They shared stories with friends and family, remembering not just the visual spectacle, but the lessons of patience, awareness, and harmony that had unfolded in front of them. The parade had become more than a ceremony. It had become a living example of skill, discipline, and respect, and everyone who witnessed it carried a piece of that lesson home. By the time the last spectators had left, the horse guards and their horses had returned to their posts with quiet dignity. The sun shone brightly on the parade ground, reflecting off the polished helmets, the glistening hooves, and the proud uniforms. The morning's events had concluded, but their impact remained. Visitors left with stories to tell, lessons to remember, and memories of a day when tradition, skill, and calm authority combined to create an unforgettable experience. The horse guards had not only performed their ceremonial duties flawlessly, but they had also demonstrated the true meaning of mastery, discipline, and respect in a living, breathing display of horsemanship.